All right, so let's get our day started at work. Got my lovely Evo 8 in the shop. But let's show you what it's like in a day of Boosty built. So I go through one garage. This is my other garage that I go through, which I don't need the light because I'm going through it. Once I go through that garage, I'm finally in my shop. So, come out here, get the lights turned on. Sucks because the light switch is all the way at the other end of the shop, but get the lights turned on and then let's get this day started, guys. But that's my commute to work every morning. All right, this is the project for today. This is an Accurate TSX, a 6-speed. Has a clutch issue, so we're throwing a clutch in it. And at the same time, we were hearing a noise from the trans. These TSXs come with a magnesium case, and it's very common for it to fail. So right there where the countershaft bearing goes, the housing size loses its like shape, I guess you could say. It kind of like ovals out or gets beat. I'll show you what I'm talking about in a second. I'll simulate it with the old bearing and then show you. So what we're doing now is we're gonna upgrade it, because that's what we call it, to the Accord cases, which are aluminum. So we're ditching this magnesium case. See that symbol right there? That means it's magnesium. We're gonna upgrade from the magnesium case to the aluminum case from the Accord. It has to be from an 03 to 07 Accord to work for this. The gear sets are already assembled and done, so I got them wrapped here. I already fixed the transmission, the noise that we were hearing. It was the final drive. The countershaft teeth were worn. Why were they worn? Because that bearing allows some movement, and that bottom of that bearing, the bottom of the countershaft can move, and then it wears out that final drive. So let me simulate it with the old bearing in that case to show you what's going on, and let me show you what the old countershaft looked like that I had to replace the countershaft and the ring gear, because you want to keep the ring gear and the countershaft, which makes up your final drive, together as a match set. That's what I like to do. Everything's cleaned and assembled. So I just got to re-shim the diff and the input shaft for the new case. The countershaft's already shimmed. It has a shim up here, so you basically do that like out of the cases. But anyway, let me get this bearing out right here and put it in the case to show you what I'm talking about. And then I'm going to show you what the countershaft teeth look like from that worn case. All right, so here's that wear and that damage I was telling you about on the countershaft. Do you see that? All that wear. So that's caused by this. Check it out. So this bearing race in the trans, do you see that movement? It's not supposed to be doing that. So even when you put this retaining plate here with the 2 bolts, you'll still get this movement here. And you're not supposed to have any movement in that. And what that movement's doing is allowing this bottom case, have this bottom right here, to flex. And if that flexes, that's when you get this wear. And then eventually what happens is you'll break a tooth or two or a few off the final drive, and then it'll cause the whole trans to just grenade, because once these teeth go everywhere or lock up, the training will lock up. So we're gonna upgrade this to the Accord cases. I'll show you that here shortly. But this is a common issue on these magnesium TSX cases. And on top of that, all these bolts are like reverse, and a lot of them just corrode and break inside. It's I don't know, it's a horrible design in my opinion. The Accord aluminum cases are way better. So if you ever have a TSX trans apart, check that out. Check that bearing out real close or real good. See if there's any play like this. Like that should not have that kind of play in there. I've seen them worse than this. I might be able to insert that video here because I have a conversation with a previous customer from his TSX that had the same issue. So I might be able to insert that video because I believe I sent him a video of how bad it was to show him. That's where the countershaft goes for the final drive. It goes down in here. So like it's going to be moving around like that. This is what I got to deal with, these guys over here bothering me all the time. So we're going to take this Accord trans apart to get the Accord 5-speed gear set out of here. So it's ready for the 6-speed gear set that I have assembled over there. So we're going to crack the cases up, probably give it a good cleaning with some brake cleaner, some compressed air. A really good cleaning. You'll see how clean I like them. Outside, we'll try to do our best, but it's in the inside that matters. So we'll get the 6-speed gear set in here, and then we'll put this gear set on the side for the customer. We'll wrap it up with saran wrap or something, so they have like a spare gear set they can either sell or hold down for what a future project or to sell or whatever. But the point is we got to strip these cases down so that we can get them ready for the TSX gear set. So stay tuned. All right, so we got the cord trans apart. It looks good inside, like they always do. You know, the inside is what matters. Anyway, I have to pop this countershaft bearing off because this is for the 4388 because that's what the cord five-speed comes with. The gear set's right there. That'll be going to the customer. Sometimes I credit the customer some money if they want to sell this stuff, or I could offer them some money. Sometimes people will have no use for it. Like, yo, you want to buy it off me? You know, we'll work out a deal. But anyways, I'm going to pop that countershaft bearing out because it's for the 4388. It's a different size. I'm going to put the 471 that came with that TSX trans. And obviously I got to clean all this up, so stay tuned. But everything looks good so far in the case. So it's a little tool I made with a slide hammer, and then I believe that's a GM tool. I don't remember the part number. It was a GM factory tool or J part number from GM with a slide hammer, and then I just... Whoa! Just like that. No heating the case, no struggling, pop, 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 pop. And then on the back side, it grabs the bottom of the bearing lip right here. Never cracks the plastic, nothing. This is a great tool that I rigged up, and it works great. Remember how I told you guys it was the inside that matters? Look at that. Spotless, nice and clean, ready for the gear set. So now we're going to put the TSX stacks in here and get this thing all shimmed up and closed up and ready to go. Okay, so we got the 4.7 bearing in here. Like I said, it's a different shape and size to match the 4.7 final from the TSX. So we got in there. I put my differential in here, and I put my input shaft in here. Right now, I'm using the shims that came with the Accord case. So I'm matching the shims that came in the Accord case just to start off. I still need to set the main shaft end plate, and I need to set the differential clearance. But I'm going to start with the Accord shims with the Accord case. And then this, like I said, this thing gets shimmed over here off the car. There's a countershaft shim right there. Use a feeler. That got already done. That's set. Now I got to do the input and the diff. So let's see if they're close or how far off they are right now. Let's close the case and let's see where we stand with the input shaft. First things first, I only got 2 bolts here, 2 bolts here. You just need 4 bolts to close it up. So I got 4 bolts closing it down. First thing you want to do is try to spin the diff, and you got to make sure that the shim's not too thick, because when you go to close the case, if that shim there is way too thick, you can crack the case. So right now, the diff spins with ease. So I know it's not too tight, because if it was way too tight, it would not be spinning that long and spinning. So I know it's going to be either good or on the loose side. So now we'll stick my feeler there and measure the gap. That's the diff. At the same time, my input shaft is in here too. And I can set my main shaft end at the same time that I'm doing the diff. So let's see what feeler I can stick in there. All right, so here we got 10 thousandths of a shim of a gap. That's wrong. This is like an OEM style rebuild, so that's way too loose. So now I know where that's at. So now I can set the input shaft end plate, and then when I open it for the last time, I'll figure out my math and figure out what shim I need. Obviously, it needs to be thicker because 10 thousandths of an inch is way too much for the diff. That's not what I want to put it at. So I'll do the math. I'll get the right thick shim for that, and then now I'm going to do the main shaft. So I'll flip it over and set up my main shaft tool. So check it out. Here we go. So now we're going to measure the main shaft end plate. I have my indicator zeroed out. I give this a light tap. That's why there's wear there, because I tap it with my hammer, boom, 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 to set it all there. So now when I pull this, it's going to tell me that clearance, that end plate. So that's how you rig up that tool. Like I said, so the diff, now I know it's too loose. I know that it's 10 thousandths right now. So let's say I want to aim for 0 to 0.004, which is the OEM spec. I would need to do some math. So if I want to get 4, I need to add 6 thousandths to whatever size that shim is. So let's hypothetically say that's a 140 shim, but that's in millimeters. So I have to do some math. I got to convert millimeter to inches. But anyway, I need to add, you know, let's say if I want 0, then I'd add 10 thousandths of an inch to that thickness, and that'll put me at 0. But anyway, that's the diff math. Same with here. This, they want a certain amount of end play. It's preference with people too. Certain people aim for different end play. Because this is like an OEM style rebuild, I'm going to aim for, you know, the number that I'm comfortable with. So I'm going to see where we're at right now and go from there. So I checked where the input is, and with the existing shims, it's exactly with the spec that I want. I'm not going to tell you that. If you need to know that spec, look through the service manual or do some research. I can't just give away everything. You guys got to put in some type of work. The diff, I like to do between 0 to 0.004. So that's where I'm going to set that to. The shims, the existing shims that came with the Accord case from the Accord gear set worked in my application. I got lucky. It's not always like that, you know? Like sometimes you'll swap cases and it'll be too tight or too loose, and sometimes that shaft won't even spin, or sometimes you'll feel the plate in and out because it's so wrong. So in this application, all I got to do is shim the diff. So I'm going to open it back up, put the correct diff shim in. I have a bunch of shims over there, so I gotta do some math to figure out what size I need. Go to my shelf over there, my transmission, get the right shim. And then I'll put the diff back in alone because I already have this set. Remember, guys, this is already good with those existing shims. So I'll put the diff back in there alone. and then I'll check with the shim that I think it needs, and then I'll double check it. Like, obviously if I do the math, I'm sure it'll be like 90% right, but you still always want to put it in and double check. It doesn't hurt to double check your work. After that, the counter's already done, the input's already done. Once the diff gets shimmed, I can silicone the 2 halves and close it all back up and we'll be good to go. And that's how you perform a proper case swap the right way. You don't just slap cases from one to another. You have to check and set the shimming if it needs it. And most of the time, it always needs it. All right, look, guys. So Honda shims are labeled in millimeters. This is the one that I took out here that I told you 10 thou equaled 0. That's what I could fit in there. That would give me 0 gap. So I'll check it in millimeters. I'm getting about a 120 shim. So 120 shim. What I can do is add 120 millimeter to what a 10 thou equals in millimeter, which is 0.254. So I could add 0.25 to 1.20, which was this, and it'll give me what? 145 is what I need, right? Or I could just do this. I could just stack them together and go like this, and it should give me a 145. It's giving me 144 because obviously you can't be perfect with these depending on how much you depress it and squeeze it. So I need a 145 shim to get me to 0. If I wanted 0, the spec is 0 to 0.004. I don't really like aiming for 0. I like to aim for 0.001, as close to 0. Even if I get 0.002, 0.003, 0.004, that's okay. The spec is 0 to 0.004. For this one, I'm going to go to my bench and look for a 140 to 145 millimeter shim, put it in here and see what my gap is next. So stay tuned. All right, so now I got a 0.003 shim in there. I'm sorry, 0.003 feeler. So my gap is 0.003 now. I can pull it out and I can feel slight drag. So I'm at 0.003. Spec is 0 to 0.004. I'm in that window. The diff spins great. So the diff is shimmed. The input was just shimmed as you saw in the last clip. And my output was shimmed out the car, like I said, or out the trans. You do it up here with a feeler. Where's my feeler gauges? Right here. So there's a gap right here between the top bearing and the top of the gear. Boom. So now all 3 shafts are shimmed. Now I can apply silicone to the 2 case halves, put the whole gear sets in here with the forks, and it's done. That's how I perform my case swaps. I don't just smack cases, gear sets from case to case to case. That's not professional. I cannot do it that way. I'm a professional shop. This is how I do it the professional way. This is the right way to do it. You can't just swap over, because I've had guys come in here where the top of this bearing housing is smoked. I'm talking about like smoked in here. I'll see if I can insert a clip from one of the customers that I sent. Tight, so it gets really hot here. It kills the bearing, it kills the case, it can crack it. Same with the diff. If it's too loose, that diff's going to move up and down. If it's too tight, it's going to be hard to spin and it's going to slowly kill everything because that's going to create heat. So you got to do this right, guys. It doesn't take much time. With the proper tools, shimming the input and the diff took me an extra, what, 20 minutes of my time? Not much. So just do it right, guys. Input shaft bearings in, counter shaft bearings in, the retaining plate forwards in, the 2 10 mils were torqued. Don't forget the magnet. I've done hundreds of transmissions. Yes, I've forgotten the magnet at one point. I put a trans together and I found the magnet on the side that I put to the side because I was cleaning the metal off of it. I had to take it completely apart, clean the silicone. Don't forget the magnet. Do the magnet first. This is my habit now. I put the magnet in first. After the magnet goes in, you can put the diff in. Slide the diff in. Doesn't need much force. Like, look, I'm using my fist. See? It goes all the way down. I spin it. Good. That's in. Wet my hands clean. Next thing, the shims. You got the concave, convex. Goes down this way. I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but it goes that way. Your second washer goes in on top. Doesn't matter which way that one goes in. It's the same on both sides, right? And then I got to put the gear stacks in. So maybe you want to flip around this way. So I have a technique of putting these stacks in. I've been doing it for a long time. So if I get it right the first time, don't feel bad, guys. This can take you guys, I don't know, 5 minutes, 10 minutes. It never takes me more than a minute. I've done it so many times. I just know what I'm doing. I've done it. So you put all the forks on, hold the stacks, hold this on the air just like this, boom, 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 boom. And then I can literally pop this in. The first time, every time, completely right. No questions asked. Put all the forks in neutral. See this one, the 1, 2 is in gear. And I can spin everything like this. This is what I like to do. Make sure everything spins freely. Now everything's good. Now next step. You put the reverse on. the reverse actuator piece. And then, alright, so the stacks are in. The reverse piece is on. The reverse, this hole, there's an arrow right there in the case. You see that little arrow? That's how you line that up so you know where that bolt hole goes. These are torqued down. We're ready to rock. Now, on the TSX case, you have this washer here that goes underneath reverse on the case. Right here. So when you're swapping over, you do not retain this. This only matches and stays with the TSX magnesium case. So that would go under the reverse right there. If I was to put that washer underneath here, you would have problems with engaging reverse. It would either not work or it would pop out. I forgot what the symptoms of it is. But you do not need to use that there, all right? So don't accidentally do that. If you actually look at it like this, do you see how like right there is higher up than the input shaft bearing? Like the input shaft bearing is down here and that's higher up. See that? Look here, it's flush. It's like basically flush with it. You see that? It's flush. That's where this comes into play to step it up. And then it moves up a little bit. On the aluminum case, on the cord, it's up there already, so you need to use that. So if you were to swap all the internals and accidentally put this under reverse because it came out of your TSX case and you wanted to put it in here, you'd be screwed. You'd have to rip this whole trans apart again, drop the subframe, do all that work just to take this back out. This does not get used. This stays with the case. It's only used when you use this case. It stays there for its whole time. So just a tech tip if anyone's doing this. Maybe this will help someone down in the future. But now I'm going to apply some Honda Bond around here, making sure this is brake clean and completely dry. I'm going to put some Honda Bond. I'm going to put my oil guide into the outer case and then close it all up. And that's it. Before I close the case, I do a double check. The magnet's in. 1, 2, 3 dowel pins are in. Sometimes they get stuck in that half, so make sure you remember which side they're on, but make sure there's 3. The reverse is in. It's pointing that little arrow in the case right there. Honda Bond's applied. All these bolts are torqued. All the stacks are right. Like I said, the magnet's in. You can double check, triple check now before you close the case. This splash shield's in. All these surfaces were brake clean dry so that the Honda Band's gonna do a great job sealing. I got the bearing race in there, plus the shims. Got the shim there, and then that's how you double check, and then now you can put the case back on. So you always want to double check, triple check before you seal the 2 cases together. So we got the 2 case halves closed. There's Honda Bond, very little bits oozing out. You want to use barely any. These are machine services. They're very precise. The little bit of Honda Bond goes a long way. And we're going to clean this TSX shift arm because it has a reverse lockout because it's a 6-speed. We're not going to use the Accord one. This is the Accord one. And look at the difference. One has the reverse lockout solenoid and connector and one doesn't. See, because it's for a 5-speed, that's for a 6-speed. So we're going to use the TSX one. We're going to clean this up pretty good. Pop that on, and then that case is ready to go. And then now we just converted the TSX magnesium case to the Accord aluminum case, which should not fail and prematurely wear out the housing and all this stuff. So that's the upgrade that people do. So besides that, I just got to pop in. We got the upgraded springs for the detents, and that's pretty much it. That's how you swap that over the right way. See that? So shine the light in there. Let's see if we can show people. See the speed sensor right now, right there is touching. It's not supposed to be touching the actual tooth. It's supposed to be a gap, an air gap. This is where the little washer spacer comes into play. This has to go between the speed sensor and the housing right there to space it away. The TSX has that one. Remember, it reads off 3rd gear, and 3rd gear from an Accord 5-speed, 3rd gear from a TSX 6-speed. The gear is different, a different size, a different tooth count. So you got to match. You got to match this little spacer. So this is a TSX sensor with a TSX washer. So I'm going to pull this back a little. I'll be able to fit this washer here with the 10 mil, and then I'll have my gap there. If I was to just shove this on here with no spacer and a 10 mil, they will literally ruin the sensor. It'll break from hitting the teeth in there, and it could cause a whole bunch of stuff inside to go wrong in there. So take precaution on that. So now you have a gap there. So you look at it better. See that gap? Right there. That's the gap you want. You want some type of gap so it can read right. So without this spacer here, without that little spacer washer right there, it would be touching the gear and it cause a whole bunch of damage and chaos. So that had to be used. So, and that's why, because without that there, that sensor would be hitting against the gear. It would rub the whole time, make noise, break the sensor. That'll go flying in the tranny, go between the teeth, cause damage. So that's right. Now we can put the shifter arm on and we're done. That's why I like to leave the shifter arm off while I check that speed sensor gap so I know exactly how much of a gap it's at. So I'll even check it. Even though Even though it gave me that washer, I'll still check it to make sure there's a gap there. Like, I'll double check the factory or double check my work or whatever. You know, that washer could have got mixed up from the last guy that was in here. So I'll put whatever washer was there, hoping that it'll work. And in this instance, it works. So hopefully that helps someone in the future with speed sensor alignment problems or gap. Just has to have some type of gap. There's a feeler gauge spec, 20,000 to 40,000, I think is what it needs to be about from what I figured out from playing with it. So just don't overlook that, guys. That's a big deal when you switch gear sets. You have to make sure that the new gear, because third's always going to change when you switch gear sets, unless you're going with the exact same gear. If you're going from a 6-speed TSX to a 6-speed TSX, or if you break your 5-speed Accord third and you run another 5-speed Accord third, you don't have to change that. But when you change gears from like a 5-speed to 6-speed to a Gear X and a PBG, you have to check that gap and set it. Coat a Honda bond on that surface. Make sure you got the 2 dowel pins. There's my 2 dowel pins. Sometimes they stay in the case there. Sometimes they stay in the arm here. In my case, both are on the arm, the 2 opposite dowels. Boom, now I can pop this on with the 10 mils. I got the shifter arm on, the 4 10 mils for the arm on. I got the Allen key there tight, the 8mm Allen key. Speed sensor set. I got the reverse bolt in, all the case bolts in. Everything's good. The last thing you want to do is seal this C-clip and then cover it up. I have my extra seal out because when I check my diff clearance, it's easier with the seal out the way, so I can pop that in, not a big deal. But you want to snap this in. So you can turn the case upside down, smack it on the piece of wood that's on the car, or let me show you this trick. Come here, Nick, hold that camera from here. So get closer to show right there. So I like to shift it to second. Look, first, second. Now watch, it just snapped itself in. Boom. It just seated itself. When you put it in second, it lifts the counter up. That's my trick. Sometimes it doesn't work. It works maybe 8 out of 10 times where I have to flip the case over and smack it on a piece of wood. Shift it in second right here. So go down, push this down, and then down. Boom. And that should engage second. I'll lift it up and smack it. Now I'll take my pliers, just butt them up together to make sure they really bit in nice, and then put a little Honda bun on the top, and I'll cover that bolt back up, and there you go. End result, TSX 6-speed inside an Accord case with the TSX lockout arm. So this should prevent it from having those famous countershaft bearing problems and the magnesium corrosion and BS that case comes with. So we are ready to rock and roll and pop this sucker onto the car. So now I got to put the new clutch kit on, and then he wants to ditch these innovative mounts because he says it's way too vibrating in the car. It's not smooth, so he's got these aftermarket stock style mounts so he can get rid of some of that vibration because he does not like the aftermarket ones. Some guys don't mind that little vibration, maybe on a race car or like a road race TSX, but this guy does not want it for his daily driver, so he's going back to stock mount. So he's probably going to be posting these innovative ones for sale. Nothing wrong with them, he just doesn't like the extra vibration that they have. And I think the red inserts are actually like the most stiff ones, so he shouldn't have done those, the last owner, unless he really didn't want that to move. But this new owner does not like them, cannot stand them. So put the clutch on here, the tranny on here, and we're good to go. All right, if you snuck around to the end, you're getting a sneak peek of some of the merch I'm going to be releasing here. I appreciate your support. Comment, like, and subscribe.